Good evening and good morning, depending on where you are in the world. So hopefully we've got a few people joining us from Canada and the US and some people from here, Australia, New Zealand and nearby. So we've got a couple of different time zones. Hello, Robin. How are you going?
Hi, things are great. How are you doing?
Yeah, good. Excellent.
You have summer, we have winter, so I hope you have fantastic weather right now.
It has been disgusting. So that's like disgusting. You walk outside and immediately you're sweating. Here in southeast Queensland anyways. I'm not sure what it's like in and that's the other thing, is it's such a big place that like it can be really gross here and totally nice somewhere else. So it's been really gross the last couple of days. And it's like the middle of March. It's supposed to be cooling down, but no.
No. Well, I'll send some snow your way, okay?
Look, I've already done that this year, okay? I went to Mount Kosciuszko. There was snow. I've done my snow. I'm good. It was February and there was snow. So, yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. You can keep your snow, actually. I saw this is totally off topic from parrots, guys, but I don't know where it was now. It was in California. And there was so much snow at this snow resort that the ski lifts were under snow.
It's incredible how much snow some of those Rocky Mountains get. It really is incredible.
Yeah. So I'm glad I was at Yosemite well before there was snow.
Yep.
Cool. So Shannon has said, hello guys, it's been cold here in Victoria. Wouldn't mind a bit more sun. You see, that's what I mean. Like it's totally like Victoria, cold, Queensland, I could die. So, Bianca has said, I'm here and listening. My birds right now love toys, but if I added to my flock at some point, it would be great to know some tips. Absolutely. That's great. We love that you've come along just to be proactive. Proactive is great.
Oh, love that. Yep. Gold star for Bianca. Good job.
Yeah. And Bianca comes along to a lot of our live streams, which is awesome. Thanks for being here and supporting us. So before we get started on our topic today, I thought we could, Robin's been here a couple of times. We did a talk on harness training and, oh gosh, I can't remember what our other topic was previously, but we've done a couple together, which is awesome. So you'll previously have seen her as Canada Bird School, but now she's Parrot SOS. So Robin is going to maybe tell us a little bit about the name change and what she's doing now that she is Parrot SOS.
Yeah, because I am physically in Canada. I'm here in west part of Canada in Alberta. And we had run the Canada Bird School for several years and wanting to allow anyone, it's not just Canadians who can come and learn these parrot things, just like with Parrot Life isn't just Australians who come and learn things. We're a big community. So changing the name a little bit, going to Parrot SOS so that we can really focus on helping whoever needs the help no matter where they are. I like the SOS because it gives you that idea of helping. We're here to save. We got all the information for you. But we've also got a bunch of courses that are all online and a membership. So we're calling it the Smart Beaks Academy. It's part of the SOS family. And we have all sorts of courses available for you online, 24/7, hop on. There are texts, there are videos, there are class recordings. We have bundles of things that are together. So you can go and take a look. parrotsos.com goes over all of, oh, good. You've got the link up on the screen. Thank you.
Yes. And I'm going to really quickly, because it's so impressive and beautiful, I'm just going to bring her website up because look at that. It's lovely. I love it. I love your new logo. It's wonderful.
Oh, thank you so much.
There's lots of stuff there, and
look around, go take a look. Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff there. And we've got free items too. And our blog has a bunch of articles that we're starting to put up a little more every day, and that's all free. So go take a look around.
Yeah, there it is there. So yeah, go and have a poke around. It looks great. I love it. I love the very Australian colouring that you've chosen for your website as well, green and yellow. That is very Aussie of you.
Love it. I love it.
Yeah, so yeah, you guys can go and check that out. And like I said, we've dropped the very easy to remember website link just down there as well.
Thank you.
Awesome.
So excited.
And there's a lot of courses and things on there as well. So I highly recommend. We've got a couple of courses on our website. Certainly want to get some more up there, but Robin has some really, really great ones, especially if you're brand new to training. There's some really nice short foundation courses and that there. And so, yeah, I'd highly recommend you go check that out. It's called Smart VIX Academy, and you can find it from the services drop down on Robin's website. So you can go check that out. I know a couple of those are free so that you can have a bit of a trial run as well, which is super cool.
Yeah, absolutely. There's free courses, and we try to keep it really accessible, $5, $10, $25, so that we're not having, huge hundreds of dollars of output if you're not quite sure what you need. And I'm sure you do the same thing. You answer emails. So if you have any questions, send me an email, send Lee an email, and we're super happy to answer your questions or direct you to the right area to find the resources you need.
Yep, absolutely. Awesome. Yeah, it's cool. I was going to say something else, but my brain has completely. I guess the other thing that I really love about those online courses is that sometimes, I guess, consultations aren't necessarily achievable for people. Sometimes they just don't have the budget at the time. They're just not in the place at that time to do a consultation. And so I have been able to refer people out to online courses to get at least a start on something that they might be struggling with. So, if they've got a screaming problem, there are, a number of we've got a screaming webinar. I think you've got something on screaming as well.
I like yours. I've definitely recommended your screaming webinar. Yeah. And I got one too, but I think it's the more you can learn, the better.
That's it, yeah, and they're priced in a way that, it means that, it should be accessible for those people that maybe don't have the budget for a private consultation, but need that help ASAP, so.
Yeah, absolutely. So many cool things. Go poke around.
Yep, go for it. All right, so Jeansy said, love the name, and Bianca's going to go check it out and have a look at accessibility. So Bianca
please
has some issues with her vision, so it just means that she can have a look and see if it works out for people that maybe can't see it but need to hear it instead.
That would be amazing. It's one of the goals that I have for all of my courses is to make them all as accessible as possible. So there's audio and visual, there's subtitles on all the videos. It's taking me some time, so it's not there yet. But yeah, any extra feedback for that type of accessibility is very welcome.
Yes, yep, absolutely. Okay, well, that's it. Unless anyone had any questions for Robin about her not new, but her fresh-faced venture. Otherwise, we'll jump right in. And we have a number of questions that have already come through to either myself or to Robin. So we'll get started with those. And then, obviously, as per usual, pop your questions in the comments wherever you are watching this today, and they will pop up for me, and I'll then be able to read those out for. Can you see them on your end, Robin?
I have the ability to see them if I make the screen a little smaller. So I'm just going to do that. And I can see some of the comments. It's great.
Oh, wonderful. See, I don't get to see this from the other side of the...
I'll take a screenshot.
So now I know. That's excellent. Great. Okay, awesome. So... hello, come back. We're going to jump straight in. I'm going to start with Jaden's question. I don't think Jaden could make it today, so he popped a question on the comments of an earlier post. Jaden comes along to a lot of our stuff, so we always appreciate his well thought out questions. So I loved this question. He said, what data do you collect when assessing a bird's interaction with enrichments? This is a really cool question. So, Robin?
Okay, yeah. Great question, because we are all about the data. We need to know if the bird is interacting with it more or less, and how we track that, and what sort of things are we looking for when we're talking about interaction. What does that look like? What does that look like for each bird? I'm going to give you some just body language cues, and then we can talk about like literal metrics a little bit later. I want to look for contact with the item in a way that allows for movement towards and away. So if we're adding an enrichment item, we can gauge whether that animal is approaching it or retreating from it. And that would be my first indication of, let's see how they're interacting with this toy. We also want to see calm body language. The feathers that are not fluffed out are going to be in a neutral position. The eyes are going to be focused on the object, which in birds is a little easier to see because of their limited binocular vision. So you start to get the little cross-eyed look on your bird when they're really looking at something in front of them. Fantastic. They may interact with their beak or their feet, depending on the species. So we can take a look at that. Sometimes there is vocalizing, sometimes not. And we're looking for the middle range of a lot of these behaviors. So we're not looking for super heightened, the labels would be aggressive at that point. But we're also not looking for retreating or shutdown behaviors, things that might be labeled as fear. So we want to see neutral, but in a way that they're able to engage with the item. I was going to give a tick sheet. We'd have to make sure that we're doing it for that individual bird. Does the bird touch it with their beak? Does the bird have a neutral body? Is the bird engaging with their eyes and approaching it? Check, 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 check.
Yeah.
Do you have any other body language cues that really give you that? Yes.
Yeah. Those are probably the main ones. And I think it's, it's very species specific as well. So, and even individual specific. So, the body language that you might get from a cockatoo versus an eclectus parrot could be quite varied. With an eckie, they have that tendency for freezing that some other species don't exhibit, where they kind of just go really still and they seem to stop breathing and moving or functioning, and they've got that real frozen look that you don't necessarily see in a lot of other species. And so people might not consider that as the lean away or the step away that you might get from another bird that's showing really obvious signs of being uncomfortable. So really knowing a little bit about what's normal for your species versus what's abnormal for them. So that you can recognize whether, saying, oh, well, my eckie was fine, I put a toy in and they didn't move away from it. It doesn't necessarily mean that your eckie was actually comfortable with that item. So, really knowing that sort of those little bits and pieces. And Bianca's made a good point where she said, when you hear the chomp, they're going for it. Yeah. So obviously the other thing to listen out for, if visual cues aren't possible for you to observe, then you can also listen for those vocalizations, like Robin pointed out, and also listen for whether they're interacting with a toy. And if you're good, which I assume, Bianca, you're very good at recognizing the way different sounds, different things sound, using that as a really main part of your senses. You can probably tell by how the sound is, whether it's good or bad. And I imagine you can also listen out for things like whether the bird is moving towards the toy or away from the toy, or if they're vocalizing in a way that indicates that they're concerned. Eckies are, again, I'm just going to bring eckies up here because they have this thing where they tend to growl and carry on a bit when they're playing with toys. So they can seem quite aggressive when they're playing with toys as well. So listening out for those can be a really good way to decide on how your bird is feeling about that particular object.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. There's all sorts of signals they give. And I think one of the indicators is actually more of a setup. How are we presenting the enrichment? Are we just putting it in the cage with the bird, locking them both in and seeing what happens? Or are we allowing space for the bird to engage, walk forward, and interact by choice, with also a place to retreat should they not want to? So how are we introducing the enrichment does make a difference in how that bird potentially might be reacting to it. And, shoving it in the bird's face may or may not go well, and there could be a better way to do that depending on, sorry, I got fluff. Birds
so it happens when you've got cockatiels and African grey.
outside, it's snowing inside,
Yeah.
Yeah, so making sure that when you're adding the enrichment, it's added in a way that leaves no room for error there. The bird can choose to engage or not.
Yeah. And I think coming back to the, I guess collecting data when assessing a bird's interaction, I think it's also what sort of data you're going to collect is going to depend on what your goals are for the enrichment. Are you just trying to increase the bird's general enrichment activity? Are you just trying to increase the amount of time that they spend engaging in enrichment? Or are you also trying to decrease other potential problem behaviors? Are you decreasing further destructive behavior? Are you decreasing screaming behavior? So it's going to depend on what exactly you're addressing. And that's going to also give you other data points that you might be collecting. So for instance, if I'm working on further destructive behavior, then I, would be monitoring just the duration of time spent on particular enrichment items, but I might also be monitoring duration of preening or, amount of feathering that I found destroyed at the bottom of the cage, et cetera, et cetera. So it's going to depend. I have to be honest with my own birds. I don't collect data anymore. It's very much all in here. And I could tell you pretty much off the top of my head how long it'll take most of my birds to engage with a particular foraging or enrichment item versus, something else. And I can tell you what sort of toys they like to play with and stuff like that. But certainly, if I was working on a really specific behavior problem and I wanted to track whether we're making progress, then that's going to be, those are going to affect what I'm noticing as well.
And I think each goal is going to be different, and that will also help how you track. I just worked with a really amazing Senegal parrot, and we were able to track enrichment by the number of blocks at the end of the day that had a beak mark in them.
Yes.
And the first day it's just one block, and the next day maybe it's 2 or 3, and then we've got mountains and mountains of blocks. There's a great data set that shows an increase in chewing on block behavior. And it's just a really simple, I don't even need a tick sheet. I can just tell you how many blocks I'm going through each day. Yeah, that's perfect. Love that. It was great. It was great to see that growth in that bird because he was a little reluctant to engage with enrichment. And we'll talk about that later. But seeing an increase in block chewing behavior was really easy. I just went through more blocks.
Yeah, exactly. So again, it's going to just, I guess, depend on what sort of enrichment you're adding as well. If the enrichment is, you're like, well, I want this bird to spend time chewing on some timber, then block chewing is a great tracking tool. But maybe you're doing something else. Bianca's, I make a lot of my own toys out of things around the house. Yep, same. Otherwise, life is just too expensive with birds. And often you feel that the toys get regularly destroyed, and that's helpful. Yeah, absolutely. So even just, knowing that, I put a toy in and within a couple of days or a week, I'm going to have to replace that toy is data. Like that's, I know. And if you put something in and they don't destroy it, and that normally they would, like either there's something wrong with the bird, or that particular toy wasn't interesting to them. So even the toys get destroyed is a great potential data point, for especially for just your pet birds that you're just trying to make sure have an enriching life, and maybe you're not trying to work through a problem behavior.
And I love the variety of enrichment that we can give them. We focus a lot on chewing. It's one that we can hear and we can see and we have a lot of data for. But, the noise-making toys that are metal and clang together, or the acrylic toys that are more foraging focused and need to be opened or manipulated, things that are twisted or turned. There's so many different ways to engage with enrichment. I think we focus a lot on chewing, and there's a whole lot more to toys, and I think we should talk about that next. Let's talk about ways to get birds interacting with different items, and it's not always wood. It's not always wood blocks.
Correct. Yeah, actually, I would have to say that my birds will chew on timber, but my macaws especially, and they love plastic.
Yep.
Plastic, yeah, and like I'm not sitting here and saying, hey, go grab some plastic for your bird and give it to them. Really important, I think, and I'm just going to pop this in here now as well. Always supervise your bird with new items, new textures, new toys, because you need to know how your bird's going to interact with that before you give it to them on a regular basis. I know that my birds aren't ingesting any plastic. I use things that are made for children, generally babies, so it's usually safe to put in their mouth. But I know how they interact with it, and I know that they're not chewing it and eating it. I know they're just chewing it, and if parts break off, they're dropping those. So,
monitor. Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah. So did you want to go off on a tangent here about different types of toys?
I just wanted to mention that there are different types. I think we can answer a few questions. And
yeah, I think a few of the questions kind of.
Yeah, you had a couple of good ones, and there's one in the comments too. So yeah, let's do those.
Yeah, cool. Okay, well, we'll leave the introduction maybe for. I don't know where to start.
I know.
I'll just go with them in the order that I've got them down, I guess. So Maddie has said, and I don't know if Maddie's made it today or if she couldn't make it, but she has a parrot who jumps around in her aviary when I try to introduce a toy or any kind of foraging. I think she may have been traumatized by previous owner. I can't put any enrichment in her aviary. So it sounds like, the bird is pacing, flapping away, panicking when items are placed inside her aviary. So yeah, how might we, I guess, I've got some thoughts on that, but I'm going to let Robin take the lead on this one, and I'm sure we're probably on the same page already.
Well, and this is a great topic because everyone's got a different approach to it. I definitely would take that data of flapping, movement, avoidant type behaviors where they're moving to the back of the aviary instead of the front. I would suggest using items that are already familiar to the bird, something that is a neutral item, even if it's not technically a bird toy. Birds that live in houses might be familiar with Kleenexes, or a bird in an aviary might be familiar with the food dishes, and we can use additional dishes as part of an enrichment item. And so things that are neutral or already desensitized in our language, things that they already see those all day long. Those are normal. Yeah. Another one that I would say is, let's make change predictable. Every day I come and I put the food bowl in. And when I put the food bowl in, I also put a thingy in. And then when I come to take the food bowl out, I take the thingy out. And this is a predictable thing that happens every day that can then help change be part of that predictability.
Yeah. I guess what I would also be looking at is there a way that we can build up the items that the bird is comfortable with? So, I might do something like teach the bird to do target training, where they touch something that they're comfortable with: a pen, a chopstick, a spoon. It's going to depend on your bird. Something that they're already familiar with, that they're comfortable with, and let's get them touching that. And we teach them to do it like we would teach them to touch a target stick. You touch it, I mark, I reinforce. You move to here, you touch it, I mark, I reinforce. And I'm going to do that with another item that you're familiar with, and another one. And then gradually I might build up until I'm holding something that maybe they're less familiar with, and I'm teaching them to touch that. We have to be really careful here that we don't put them in a position where we bring something towards them and scare them, and that we're not asking them to do something that they're uncomfortable with, that they're going to do purely to get access to a high value treat. So it has to be done the right way, but we can build up, I guess, the number of safe items that the bird has in their life, so that we can then start to add those as toys and enrichment. So, really good point. Yeah. And on the building note, because we're building them touching items, we could also build like that whole big toy that has, 50 blocks on it and paper and things. What if we just took one of those pieces? How small could we make it and not see that fierce, see that neutral body? Is it just one block and it's brown and not brightly colored and not covered in rope, but just a little piece of it? What could we do that is accepted? And then build. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it's like any behavior that we want to teach, really. We want to break it down into those really small approximations, and in this case, it's just the really small parts of a toy that we'd like them to play with and start with, very neutral items, nothing brightly colored or too fanciful, something that maybe would actually just seem pretty normal to them.
Big toys in the pet store, they look great. They look like so much fun. They're brightly colored. They've got all of these things on them. And I think that's a great goal. But if your bird is exhibiting those behaviors of avoidance or, a lot of flapping, not approaching and not neutral body language, we just need to tone it down a notch and build up to that. Keep that toy. Don't get rid of it. But that's a goal and we need to work towards it. One of my favorite suggestions for people teaching toys is to start with something so easy they cannot fail. If you have a macaw, you're expecting them to be able to chew through Brazil nuts or coconuts or, a large 2x4. And your bird may need to start with a tissue to get instant success. And it's silly to give a tissue to a macaw, but is it? Because now the bird gets it and goes, oh, I can rip things with my beak. I can get a reinforcer right away. Hey, if I can do it with a tissue, could I maybe do it with white computer paper? Oh, and then we build up that skill. So I've started with tissue paper with a lot of birds, balsa wood, things that just fall apart when you look at them. And it's really confidence building for that bird. Good job. You killed that balsa block. Awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I love that. That's good. Yeah, make it easy and successful because if you're like, hey, here's a chunk of 2x4 and the bird, kind of, they can break it if they try really hard. They've got big beaks, but it takes a lot of effort. And it's like anything, we want to start with minimal effort for maximum reward and then gradually put in more reward for more effort for less reward or the same amount of reward.
Yeah, every bird's going to be different, and those little steps towards the goal are individual. The recommendations are go at the step that your bird is able to. And if one bird goes from 0 to balsa wood to pine to Brazil nuts, that's great. But if a bird needs thin balsa to a little bit thicker balsa to like a chunk of balsa, that's also okay. And go at your bird saying. I've seen people put a Kleenex, a tissue, on top of the food bowl and not tie it down, just have it sitting there like a light breeze could move it. And that is too much for that particular individual on that day. So really watch your birds and use the things that we talked about at the beginning. Are they engaging with it? Are they moving towards it? Are they touching it with their beak or their foot? Are they using their eyes, both eyes on it? And if they're not, then we need to go, okay, something's off. I saw in the comments earlier, what about placement? If you're hanging it in the cage, does it need to be close to a perch, far away, above, below? Maybe they're just not playing with it because it's out of reach or too far out of reach that bird at that moment. Is it just placed in again, back to like low effort, high reward? If it's, if you're placing something really far away from the perches and it's hanging off the roof and the bird has to climb across the roof and down the toy to get to it, that might be too much for your bird right now. Maybe you have to anchor it to the side of the cage right next to a perch to start off with. Awesome. Great. So I'm going to read out Jeansy's question now because she is here. I've seen her comment. So she did post this like a couple of days ago. She said, I'd love to know this. I have a 40-year-old 40-plus-year-old orange-winged Amazon who she got from a neighbor. He is terrified of toys and lacks any interest in them. She's slowly introduced foraging to him and he's okay with that, which is awesome. Congrats. Good job. Just being able to do that is wonderful. But I'd love to see him chew and play with the toys I buy. So I feel like we kind of already answered this just with that last question as well. But any other thoughts with regards to that? Obviously, the biggest thing here is that for this bird is that it's, it's 40 years old. I love helping birds, and I don't mind if they're 1-year-old or 40 years old and just need to develop those skills. They're not necessarily born knowing how to do all the things. I think a lot of it they're going to be learning from watching flockmates or watching their family unit. They definitely would be social learning for things like foraging for food, finding the bean pod hanging off the tree. These are all things that are learned. So we just need to put toys into that category. I like the word enrichment, and I know we say toys a lot, but we're meaning enrichment, anything they'll engage with. It doesn't have to be a block of wood hanging on a rope. It could be spoons banging together. It could be a dish, a foraging tray. That is enrichment. It can be dancing along to the radio. We can talk about all the different types of sensory enrichment. It's not always beaks and chewing, and we focus on that because as we go to the store, we buy the toy, and that's what it's to do. But it doesn't come with a manual. So just let your bird do with it as it wants to. We can definitely teach. Let's teach using the target, like you said. Let's get them to touch things and reinforce them. Hey, you touched it. Awesome. Good job. If he's already foraging, we can use some of those skills. Let's put a skewer in the cage and have a piece of food and then a piece of non-food. So we've got, a slice of zucchini and then a block and then a carrot and then a vine ball. And having it around could be all that's needed for a bird to explore it, or we might need to teach it a little bit more. So yeah, there's some opportunities. What do they engage with right now? Write a list down. They steal the pen off my table. They steal the Kleenex. They eat the buttons off the remote. They chew holes in my shirt. Those are behaviors. Yeah. They're interacting with those objects.
They're playing with things. They're just the things you don't want them to play with, but they're playing with things.
So we can fiddle with some of those. I really like the braids that you do with paper for the massage.
And I have to give some credit there to my friend Terry in the US. She first showed them to me, and I was like, these are great, and now they make up like a really common part of my routine. So.
Well, we can make them macaw-sized by a whole sheet of newspaper for one each of the strands, or we can rip little strips off of tissue paper or Kleenex and do a tiny little budgie size, hiding for food items or toy items in each of the braids as it's braided or plaited. You can put little things in there. That to me is just like those remote buttons. They're little fiddly things to pull out. And it's such an easy way to add enrichment. You can poke a little hole. You can use your own fingers. Go, see, it's right in here. Look, it's right here. Yeah, there's such a wonderful array of behaviors in that braiding with stuff in each of the braids. I love it. What do they interact with right now? Make a list.
Yeah, we can find exactly. Make a list.
Safe option. We don't want them chewing on pens, but what could we do? We don't want them chewing on your shirt, but what could we do? We don't want them chewing on your ear, but what could we do?
Yes. Yep, exactly. I'm just going to go because Jeansy was here, so she might have added something to that. But okay. She said, okay. Jasmine said it was freezing up. Hopefully it's fixed up now. I'm not sure what that's all about. Joy to the internet and all things technology. Hopefully it's working better now. Jasmine, if you're online, if you just, instead of posting in the comments because it can get lost because I'm trying to track, if you can just send me a private message if there's any dramas with the streaming. So she said she had to start that way with her Amazon. Now he's comfortable with that, and I can put an elastic band around the food dish to cover the food dish, small steps. So that was with the tissue, I guess. Yeah. I recently got budgies, and believe it or not, he is learning from them. I've only had him for 2 years. He was a rehome from my neighbor. Yeah. So social learning is so cool.
Let's talk about that. Yes.
Yeah. Let's jump in on that.
Social learning is learning from others, learning from the flock, learning from seeing. And you can use another bird to teach, but you can use another human to teach as well. Yeah. And that is super fun. It's hilarious for all of the humans involved, especially if your partner is less than happy about pretending to chew on a piece of wood. But they will learn by watching. So you play with it. You hang out with it. You touch it. You fiddle with it. You break pieces off with your fingers. Help them out. Give them a hand.
And make a big deal. Like, get silly with it. If you're like, oh my God, wow, look at this bit of paper. It's amazing. And you like tear strips off it. And like, you can even tease them. Like, you can be like, no, it's mine. Yeah, because what bird doesn't like it's mine game? You can't have it. It's mine. Because then you make it really important as well. Like, oh my God, it's like, oh, that must be amazing. She won't share it with me. But yeah, get silly, because like, if you're just like, here's some paper, do you want to play with it? They might play with it, but they might be like, that's not cool. Stop waving it in my face.
You never touch it. Why should I touch it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a big one. And like, especially if your bird is really, really comfortable with you or very bonded to you, if you start playing with things or playing around with things, they're more likely to be like, oh, okay. Obviously, if your bird is fearful of you, there's still a chance that they'll watch you. Because they're flock animals, and just like you'll notice that if you sit down for dinner, your bird might pop over to its bowl and start having a snack at the same time. They're very flock orientated, so sometimes it is just a case of playing with something nearby to get them interested, even if they're, so if they're not 100% comfortable with you yet, that doesn't mean that you can't use social learning to help.
That atmosphere, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So that's good. But yeah, I love that the little budgies are helping the little Amazon learn to play. That's wonderful. And I think, I guess the other thing that I'll mention here is that, if this bird has never had access to enrichment or toys, that even just a small amount is, like such a big improvement on that bird's welfare. So
Yep.
And having the budgies nearby is probably a massive amount of enrichment for that bird as well. So as long as we've not got them so close that they're nervous with each other, having those other birds nearby is really enriching also.
Yeah. Someone else was saying, radio or Spotify, fantastic enrichment, auditory enrichment, and not chewing enrichment. So thank you for bringing that up, Bianca. That is another way of enriching your bird's life. It doesn't always have to be chewing on toys, but we are talking about toys.
She also mentioned in there that she does vine balls. Yeah, vine balls are great because they're hollow, so you can shove things in there, and she'll pop a couple of kernels of popcorn in there and wrap it in paper towel in the microwave. So that's a really cool option. I love that. I've never thought of that, like popping the actual kernels in, then putting it in the microwave.
There. Yeah.
Excellent. Love that.
I'm gonna try that later.
Yeah, I know, right? Like, off to get some popping kernels. But the other thing, I guess, is that, as long as your bird is comfortable with the vine balls, that's a starting point. But, also showing them that you're doing that so that they can see that there's delicious food in there is a really good, but that's a really cool idea just as a fun little enrichment game as well. Excellent. Cool.
And we can talk a little bit about the budgies, because budgies are very different from Amazons.
Oh, yeah.
And species-specific play.
Yeah.
The budgies are going to play different than the Amazon. Some species of bird lie on their back and kick at a ball, and some birds will hang by one toe, and that's totally normal, and other birds won't necessarily do that. Cockatiels prefer to be on the ground, sort of scratching. Foraging trays are more enriching for them than the long hanging toys. They're not, they're fine, but really using each species as a blueprint of what is this bird likely to interact with? Yeah. Is this a treetop species? Is this a ground foraging species? Budgies are gregarious. They have huge flocks. So social learning is going to be really important for them. Maybe a more solitary species, Moluccan cockatoo comes to mind. We'll learn socially, but it's not as critical as that huge flock of budgies. So know what you're working with, do a little ethology time, learn where your
Yep.
species from and what they're likely to do, and that will help set them up for success. We're not going to do
Yes.
a long hanging toy with a ground foraging cockatiel necessarily.
That's right. Yes. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. Unless you've got a green wing macaw from Linda, in which case they are ground foraging species. Shout out to Linda.
Thanks, Linda.
Maya spends half her life on the ground, I'm pretty sure. Whereas my blue and gold is not like that at all, and he would much rather spend his time hanging from the roof upside down. So, but normally with your macaws, they're what we would call arboreal species. So they like to be up high in the trees. So they'll often prefer up high foraging and play activities, but certainly depending on their socialization as babies, they might also like to get down on the floor as well. But yeah, that's really important. I think also, as Robin has said earlier, some birds will play more with their feet and others won't, will play more with their beaks. And that's something to be aware of as well. Not every bird uses their feet to grab and grasp at things like some species do. So thinking in terms of how that's going to work for your birds. And also thinking like, watch videos of, don't just, look into your ethology, but look into, go and find some videos of, your bird in the wild and watch what they do when they're interacting with each other, watch what they do when they are foraging, because that'll give you some ideas. If you watch videos of corellas, in the wild, you'll find that, they spend a lot of time hopping around on the ground and rolling around on the floor with each other playing. And so those are birds that are going to like that. Like, hey, you roll a ball on the floor and they'll probably run along after it and pick it up and roll around with it. And they're going to enjoy that kind of activity. But you might, your macaw might not enjoy that, or your budgie might not enjoy that because they're so small, and that's, not the way that they would engage with each other.
Every bird is an individual. You've got a macaw that's a green wing arboreal species and really enjoys ground foraging. So, I mean, learn your ethology, but also know who you have, who you've got. I mean, just like humans, we're all different. We have loves and hates, and your bird might be the same. And if your bird doesn't engage with any enrichment, then you don't know if they like the ball or not. And that's when we go right back to the beginning. How can we tell? Are they engaging with it? Are they approaching it? Are they using their beak or their foot to touch it? Are they using their binocular vision? Are they, what sorts of things do they like or not like? As much as we don't know with a child who's, we don't know what their favorite food is. We sort of have to let them grow into it. Well, do you like the ball? Great. If not, let's keep trying. We'll go with stuff that's high probability. I would, with green wing macaw, I'd be like, hanging toys all day long, up high. And stuff that we can tear apart, just as a general broad stroke. But then I would get to know your bird and go, she's really into that tray or that object, and she's interacting with it as if it should be in a foraging tray. Let's try that. Let's expand it. You're watching your bird, and we want to see them play. So let's see what they interact with. What are they already playing with it? Easy entry.
Yeah. And sometimes your bird just might not know that that's fun. Like, there's, especially if you're taking on a bird from a, if you're not getting them as a baby, if you're getting them as a baby, then, you're often in this place where, like, if you start introducing toys and things now, they're gonna naturally engage with them and play with them because they're in a really curious stage of their life, and they naturally want to play with things and touch things, and they learn from an early stage. But if you're taking on a 40-year-old orange wing Amazon who's never had toys before, they just don't understand that is fun, that this is a thing that you can do and it is fun to do. And so it's just about showing them that it's fun, and then they're like, okay, I'll do this. This is great, so.
Yeah. It's making it easy. And then easier, one more step. I think the idea of foraging is fantastic and toys are fantastic, but how can we make it so easy that they cannot fail? And if I gave you 1 minute and said, have your bird interact with this, how could I make it so easy they cannot fail? The nut is clearly visible, or the millet is like half sticking out of it, or, they just, the tissue is like this, but the hole is like this. And it's just so super easy that they cannot fail. And obviously this is for the bird who's already approaching and engaging. That's, not, I'm just assuming that at this point. But if they're approaching and engaging, I need to make sure that their first interaction, their first go is a win.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
How easy can I make it? Can I make it an open paper cup? Open, not even scrunched up, maybe open with extra slits and cut out. How easy do I need to make it for success the very first try? Do that. Your bird might need something different than the next bird. That's okay. But if it's a success the very first go, then they're like, hey, that actually, that was kind of cool. And I won a prize. So I'll give it another shot.
Yeah.
Bingo.
Yeah. Yeah. That's it. I was just going to come out with something. Oh, I guess, and this Shannon's question just kind of made me think of this. And Shannon, I can't see all of your question. It does this thing sometimes where when you write too much information, it actually doesn't show me the entire thing, which is very frustrating. But she said that she has a green-cheeked conure, Diego. I've met him, little Diego, feisty. I've noticed he doesn't really play much. I've noticed if he's not eating, he just sort of stands on a perch with a calm, fluffed-up nature watching the world go by. He's often on one foot, so he's happy enough, but he's never playing. He'll use the toys to scratch his head, but not much else. I've tried buying toys with foraging options and putting his favourite treats in them. Mostly he'll get the treats and that's it. And then it gets cut off after that. But it did just make me think as well, like I think this is important to point out that, and this is, we're going back to Jaden's, I guess, data question is also important, is that just like humans, there is going to be a really big range of what is normal for some birds, and some birds might just not enjoy, like some people don't like playing Xbox 5 or PlayStation. Some people don't like watching TV at all. They don't have a screen in their house. Some people, some people don't enjoy this kind of play or this kind of play. And so I think it's also important to have a look at your bird's overall welfare and go, okay, is my bird, happy, calm, and these are labels, but when I'm observing my bird, the fact that you said, he is often sitting, he's got his foot tucked up, he's fluffed up, he's just watching the world go by. To me, that sounds like a pretty content, relaxed bird. So, and he is still getting enrichment. He's watching the world go by.
The world go by. Visual enrichment, auditory enrichment. Yeah. There's stuff happening.
Yeah, just like some people like to go to the cafe, sit, drink a coffee, and just people watch. And that might be their version of watching TV or playing Xbox. And so it's important as well to, absolutely, if you think that your bird needs the activity of engaging with toys without food in them, work on trying to encourage that, but don't, if that doesn't seem to be what that bird needs, if they seem to be content in watching the world, watching the TV, listening to music, whatever else is going on, then that might just be their preference for enrichment as well. And so, I think it's, obviously if you've got a bird who's ripping all of their own feathers out and screaming 23 hours of the day, and whatever, then we need to go, okay, well, there's something missing from this bird's life. But if that's not what you're seeing, then that's probably,
exactly.
They're probably pretty chill and happy doing what they're doing. And, we can ensure that there is some activity occurring through the foraging activities that you're doing, where you're placing food in toys and your bird is working to get access to those. That is still play. That is still enrichment. It's just not playing with a toy. And I just don't think that every bird thinks that playing with a, toy by themselves is going to be fun.
Yeah, no, I'm 100%. enrichment is such a hugely broad topic. I have one on my website that is sort of a sensory enrichment wheel. It's very similar to the ones that you see in the zoo world. Are we doing physical? Are we doing sensory, like auditory? Like what else can I do to enrich this animal's life? Because it's not all just chewing on beaks. It could be watching stuff go by or listening to the radio. So, there's all sorts of different sections to the circle, and let's see which ones they use. My other thought would be for Shannon, take a look at the entire day. They wake up, they do their morning poop, they eat their breakfast, they come out and sit with you, they do some preening, they do the lunchtime, bowl of chop, their 2:00 nap. What are they doing the whole day? And if there isn't anything else going on, like it's, I eat and then I nap. And then I eat a little bit more and then I nap again. And then I preen a bit and then I nap. Okay, well, maybe we're missing some enrichment in there. But let's take a look at the whole entirety and see, okay, what is there to do? Are we listening to the radio? Are we looking outside? Do we need to increase anything? We could just do a training session, a 5-minute training session after you come home from work. And now they've used their brain, they've used their body, they have positive experiences, you're building a bond with them, wonderful time, and then they can go back and just hang out again. Not every human likes running marathons, so not every bird's going to be go all day.
Yeah. So she's added in, she was just worried that he was bored because he doesn't play much, and that makes her feel a bit better. She said that all of his screaming and hormonal behaviours have stopped. So we did a consult a while back. He was doing a lot of screaming and looking for nesting spaces and things like that, and all of that has stopped. So, can you give tips for enrichment when my solo lazy bird is home alone? Yeah, cool. That also kind of fits in with another question we've got, so we'll circle back to that in a little bit. But and I guess the other thing I'd be looking out for is signs that my bird is sitting around not doing anything because they are, and this is a big label, but depressed. And but a bird who is truly, I guess, in that kind of state of being would be unengaged with lots of stuff. So they'd be less likely to forage at all. They will be less likely to engage with humans. Maybe they won't want to do any training. So you'll notice it in the listlessness of their overall day-to-day activities. And I don't, so unless you're seeing that sort of thing, in which case, then I might be like, oh, there's something else going on here. My bird's not playing because my bird is, suffering from something else. I think.
There's so much to look at. I mean, we always start with health, right? If your bird has a sudden change in any of these behaviors and is sitting around not doing anything when he's normally jumping around and has lots of energy, I'd go to the vet yesterday. That's a sign to me that there's something else going on. If your bird is a youngster, they're going to do youngster things. Just, puppies do puppy things. And when your dog becomes an adult, the behavior does change a bit. They do more adult dogs. They'll play, but they nap real good. And they're a lot more comfortable just lying on the sofa with you. So maybe your bird is maturing. Their play style is changing. And it doesn't mean they're good or bad. It's just, let's take a look and see what they do all day. Are they engaging with anything?
Yeah, exactly.
At all.
Again, it comes back to what Robin said earlier about, if maybe they're not playing with the toys, but are they getting on your benches and playing with stuff on your benches? Are they playing with your buttons or your glasses or your hair clips? That's still, as far as your bird's concerned, those are toys and they're playing with those. So,
I love throwing items. They go to the table and they chuck everything off the table. That enrichment. Let's just get stuff everywhere. So I have a number of clients who don't even do hanging toys. They just do toy buckets because maybe they aren't chewing on the toy, but the act of going to the bucket, selecting a thing and chucking it is enrichment. Awesome. So there's so many different ways to play. We don't have to always do a string of wood. They're just, let's go and take a look
Abs-
at what their whole day looks like. Let's take a look at what they're engaging with. And if they are over preening, overdoing any behavior, overdoing, you know, the Velcro bird, there's a good label, the bird that sits with you and doesn't engage with anything.
Yeah.
And when you put them down, still doesn't engage with anything. You need some teaching. That's all. We go back to the beginning of, let's teach them. I'm going to put a block of wood here and play with my bird with the enrichment item.
I've had some clients give me a real funny look, and I'm like, well, if you don't like them playing with your jewelry, just make a necklace out of toys, guys. And then once they're playing with it on you, it's much easier to transfer it off you.
Bingo. Yes. Yeah. What will they engage with? They're chewing on jewelry. Bingo. You win. Okay.
They like shiny things, and they like things that you're wearing. Great. Let's use that to our advantage.
Yeah. So I think there's lots of opportunities that we don't see as opportunities necessarily, or you need to talk to Lee or myself and be like, hey, that jewelry is an opportunity, not a problem. Let's use it. Let's work with that. That's a great entry point.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Cool. So Monique has said, how do I introduce foraging to a 31-year-old grey I just adopted who has never foraged? He spends a lot of the day sitting still on his perch doing nothing, and I feel like I need to find ways to stimulate him. It's a really good question and really common. Like we've already probably touched base on a couple of things that I would recommend, and that would be foraging trays as a starting point, because they're so simple, and it can be a food bowl. So if you've, greys, have sometimes, especially older greys who maybe haven't been introduced to anything, they can be a little bit neophobic. And so that means that they're scared of new things. And so going, hey, here's your food bowl, but in the food bowl, I've put some shredded paper or some, here in Australia, and you guys might have it over in Canada as well, we have a recycled newspaper cat litter. It's just recycled newspaper. It's totally safe to use. So I'll use that, and I'll put that in the bowl, and then I'll put their food, pellets or some seed or whatever, something high value usually. So I'll start with seeds or not, something that I know they're going to be like, wow, this is amazing. And I'll put that in there with a little bit of shredded paper, a little bit of that cat litter. And start with that. And it's like super simple. Obviously, depending on how your bird reacts to that, they might be like, what is that cat litter stuff that you've got in there? We might have to take a step back. But I find the vast majority of birds find that neutral enough not to be worried about it. And that's the starting point. And then I make it more and more of the substrate and less of the food. And then you might start adding, other items into it that that the bird's comfortable with to start off with.
Love that. Yeah, I love foraging trays, foraging bowls. I think I have used a foraging tray or bowl with every bird I've ever worked with. A food item and something in the way. Shredded paper, beads, old toy part, something else in the way. I like to also offer people, depending on how neophobic this bird is, depending on how they react to anything changing, especially food bowls, something we can do is just give them 4 food bowls. We are teaching the behavior of, this one's empty, I'm lifting my head, I am searching for the next one, and I'm putting my head back down. You start with 4 bowls side by side, and now you can put bowls all over the place, because the behavior is, this one's empty, I lift my head, and I search for the next item. And that could be where you're starting with a lot of these older birds that have never had any enrichment of any kind, depending on how much they move around. If they're able to think, there's food in more than one bowl, that could be your starting point. It's also easiest for some owners. You don't have to get anything. Just grab the bowls you've already got and do a couple of them. We're not restricting diet, but we are going to put, if it's 4 bowls, we'll put a quarter of your meal in each bowl. So it's not full. It's, a quarter. So we have a full meal around the cage. We're also not, if you're afraid of the paper, you're not going to starve. Maybe we do add some paper bits or some shredder beads into one of the 4 bowls. Let's see how they interact with that. We've trained the behavior, rewarded the behavior of lift head, search, insert head.
Yeah.
That's a great option. I've also used ice cube trays. The same behavior of this bit has food, this bit has food, this bit has food. And so we're really teaching that search, good things happen skill.
Yeah, egg cartons could be good for that as well. Obviously, we're going to work within what the bird's comfortable with. Yeah. Oh gosh, I just had a thought and now it's gone. I hate that.
Just cut me off. It's time. Just cut me off.
I'm sure it'll come back. It's fine.
Well, and this is for everything.
Oh, sorry. Skewers was the other thing. It's like skewers are relatively, like, that is pretty unobtrusive. Most birds aren't going to be worried about that. And if you've just got chunks of veggies or whatever, something that they like, it might be a piece of fruit to start off with if they love fruit, But a skewer is another great way of getting some foraging into their day-to-day activity that's pretty unobtrusive. I really like baffle cages, or if you're here in Australia, we have a new option called a foraging bin, which is similar but slightly different and better quality, if I do say so. And they're very similar, but the same kind of idea. They're relatively unobtrusive. Most birds don't mind them. They don't seem to be frightened too much of baffle cages. And again, another one, you can just shove a bunch of fruit and veggies into it. And those are kind of really nice intro options to get birds foraging. And then often what happens is as they start to forage, they build up some general confidence with exploring and searching and looking, and you can start to increase the different items that you're offering after that.
Yeah, absolutely. When you go with the bird and what the bird is telling you, then do I need to start with these items or do I need to start with just food bowls? Does this bird freak out when I move the food bowl 2 inches to the left? Maybe I need to start with that. Does this bird, really, really hate Kleenexes? Then let's not use Kleenexes in our behavior plan.
And I've met birds that are like, no, get that paper towel away from me.
Exactly. Yeah. And it's all individual. They all need their own thing. And we can make it fun. Yeah. Wow, time is flying by. I know. So I'm just scrolling through. There's a lot of comments that aren't questions, but Sarah has said, what can I do to encourage our budgies to play? Basil played a lot when he was younger, but not much at 10 and a half years. And I feel like that was we kind of already talked about that. It is really normal for how we interact and how we play to change as we age. Humans do the same thing. As children, we have these wild imaginations and we come up with these games that we play where everything is literally imagined. And then as we get older, that changes and the way we interact changes. And some adult humans are really playful and others are not. And so, as a starting point, coming back to what Robin said with regards to Shannon earlier, what is Basil doing during the day? She said, mine does the same, watching the world go by. Yeah, so maybe Basil's just happy watching the world go by. He's a watcher. Are there any problem behaviors that you feel that Basil has that, maybe we do need to, what are the other enrichment activities? Go to Robin's website and have a look at that wheel. I've also got a video on our YouTube channel about different kinds of enrichment as well, where we talk a little bit about those different types of enrichment. So sensory enrichment, your social enrichment, your cognitive enrichment, those are, there's lots of different ways for your bird to get enrichment from the environment that isn't just toy play. So I'd be more inclined to print that little enrichment wheel out that Robin's got and actually go through and write down what it is that Basil gets during the day. And you might find that he actually has this huge list of enrichment that he gets. Maybe it's not toy play, but that's okay. I'm just sending it to you right now, so you have it. There we are.
And she said, my budgie actually enjoys sitting on my shoulder while I sing songs with the radio on. It gets her chirping and watching me.
Yeah.
But then she said that she feels like my bird is depressed. Sarah, I would probably recommend a starting point if you haven't recently, just having a vet check, because sometimes when we see listlessness or depression of behavior, so less behavior, it can be a sign, especially if we're talking about older birds, and 10 for a budgie is getting a little bit on. I'd be inclined to have a chat to our vet and just, have a chat to them about potential what might be causing that from an age perspective. Maybe we have some pain related to arthritis, and so we're moving less because it's just painful to move. And so I'd be inclined with an older bird that I felt was engaging less and less to start with a vet check, because there's a very high chance that maybe there's something age-related going on, or maybe my eyesight isn't as good, so I'm not as confident in moving around or interacting with things anymore. And so I'd definitely be maybe going down that track and getting a vet check if it hasn't been done recently, because that's, if I'm seeing a reduction in normal behavior in a bird, it's, maybe they're unwell, or maybe, as they're getting older, they're just feeling their age a bit.
Yeah, I'd love to see old budgies make it to 20. That would make me so happy. But I mean, not all humans make it to 100. So we all have to go with what we've got.
Yeah.
This is a thing. But I also don't think it's unusual for budgies to change their play as they change their age. We all do it. We're not all young whippersnappers anymore. Sorry.
Yeah. And how we act at 20 is different to 40, is different to 60, and different to 80. And what we enjoy and what we do. So certainly, taking into account those changes. We've got Robin's cockatiels in the background demonstrating how normal that kind of vocalization is for a cockatiel, guys. So if you're considering getting a cockatiel, they can be quite loud. They're not unhappy. They're just chatting.
Right now, they're walking around on the floor, having a conversation about it, having a great time down there.
This is another indication of know your species, because people think that getting a little cockatiel means quiet, but they can actually be very chatty, very vocal birds. And it's not because they're unhappy. It's just because they're, like Robin said, they're having a conversation about the floor and what's going on the floor and how their day has been.
It'll turn into a song in a minute, I'm sure. I love them to pieces. They do their own thing. But I might have to move them in a second.
Oh, the joy of birds. Okay, cool. So just gonna swing back around to the enrichment for solo birds, because I got an email from a lady named Crystal who said she'd love to know about enrichment for solo birds. She mostly uses YouTube. Great, we've talked about that. Plus the local magpies visit for a chat. Excellent. His cage opens on top so he can fly around of an evening, but he's also toy averse. I've been looking for anywhere talking about adopting another bird to keep him company. He's very neophobic, and even the perch with dangly bits and a bell on the end has been in there for over a week with no signs of approach, let alone interest. Okay. So he's a bit like a solo neophobic bird. How do we enrich him? Again, I feel, I feel like I'm going to be saying this a little bit now, but I think we've almost covered a lot of these sort of things now. With some of the stuff we said. So again, Crystal, when you get to watch this, or if you're here, circling back to that, have a look at that enrichment wheel, and I'll post that in the comments when I get a chance at the end of the session so that people can see it as a photo. But having a look at that and actually going through and marking off, does he get enrichment from that whole kind of circle? Is being toy averse that much of a problem for him? But also go back to what we've talked about already with regards to introducing toys, because there's probably already a lot going on in his life, even as a solo bird. That he gets from you and from his friendly visitors and from his YouTube or Spotify. But what other activities is he getting to engage in? Does he, get to have a shower? Does he, push things off the top of a bench? Does he play with, leaves or browse that you give to him sometimes? So, fresh, of all of the stuff that I give my birds, by far their favourite things are gum nuts, which, yay for Australia, we get lots of those. Banksia pods, Hakea pods, those things are, if I was to lay a bunch of things out on a table, those would be the things that, minor cause especially would like beeline towards over anything else.
I love that we can still give greens, even though I don't have Australia gum nuts. I can get a bag of spinach and make the leaves wet and let the budgie roll around in them. Or I can use the carrot tops in the holder that holds the millet. Those long slender ones that hold millet? Put carrot tops in there. What a great enrichment. It'll move and they can pull the little bits out. And there's lots of options.
You can just peg it to the top of your cage. Just peg it to the top of your cage. Piece of kale, peg to the top of your cage. Birds will love playing with that. There's lots of things that, and I guess sometimes we don't see that as play, but it is play. Like, if we're just hanging bits of greenery from the top of their cage and they're, rubbing themselves on it or chewing on it, nibbling on it, chewing it into tiny bits and pieces, and it all ends up on the floor, that's still play, and it might be something that they enjoy more than, a plastic toy.
Training games. You have a moment to play training games with your little birds. They love They love recall. They will go places, and now they're flying or walking or climbing or, engaging with objects in their environment. Even if they're just walking up and down ladders, that's still exercise and it's still enrichment. And teaching and training is just so much fun. Don't count out those little guys. They love doing it. Sarah did say that she's been to the vet and they did mention possible arthritis. So, so if there is a potential for arthritis, you can always talk to your vet about, is there some kind of supplement or medication that might, that you could trial to see if that changes behavior as well. So you can go, hey, can we try something that might, help relieve any arthritis pain? And then if you do give them that and you notice an increase in those, behaviors that you might have seen decreasing, then great. Now we know that, it might be arthritis, it might be some other kind of pain, but this is helping, and we can make her life more comfortable and improve her quality of life through just, giving her some, something a little bit to help her out. So that's something as well. All right. Beck sent in a question I just wanted to touch base on. She said her sulphur-crested loves her baffle cage, but hates anything brightly collared. She's a bit like this with her food too. Would love some tips on how to get her more interested in bright toys. I guess I'm just going to preface this with, sure, you can definitely teach a bird maybe to interact more with bright things, but there's also plenty of not bright things that most birds like. And Beck, I'm pretty sure you're based here in Australia, and being a sulphur, your sulphur's going to love any Australian pod. Gum nuts, Banksia pods, pine cones. Oh, I have those. I have pine cones.
Oh, yes. All of those pods and things that come off trees that are not brightly collared, your bird's going to love those. And I guess sometimes it's a case of going, hey, if that's not what she loves, and let's just give her what she does love instead. But I think some of the tips we talked about with breaking things down into small bits, and maybe you start with something that's pastel coloured instead of brightly coloured. You said that she's a bit like that with her food too. That's because cockatoos aren't very big on brightly coloured food. They're not fruit eaters like some of our other parrot species. They're very much granivores. They prefer, so their food preferences are usually pretty beige and bland. So it's not abnormal for them to like see a bright food and be like, that's just not what I like. But you could break it down and start with like, washed out pastel type collared items, doing what we've talked about today with like, just adding food or getting them to touch it, and then gradually building up from there. What are the things that your bird already plays with that you could, and in what way, again, is it, do they like brightly shiny things that you're wearing around your neck? Could you put some toys on your neck and play with them that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
There's lots of options there for sure.
But, the other thing I'd say is just don't kill yourself going down that road or spend loads of money on those toys when there are things that, you can buy great natural toys. There's lots of businesses here in Australia and over where you guys are as well that build great natural toys. And I think bright stuff is more of a human thing where we think bright things mean fun, but not necessarily.
Doesn't have to be. It really doesn't. I wouldn't even bother unless it comes up in other areas of her life that it's really limiting. That's just going to be who she is, and I am okay with that.
Yeah. So
the one for Courtney. Let's talk about Courtney.
Yes, yeah. I was just going to say we'll do Courtney's, and that'll be Courtney Cox apparently. That's just clicked. And then that's going to be our last question, I think, so that we don't keep Robin here for too long. But I feel like people are sort of wrapping it up a bit now. Anyway, so Courtney has said, sometimes I'm not sure if my conure is playing or is annoyed. Specifically, I think he likes the game of throwing a vine ball off a stool, and then I pick it up and repeat. He gets enthusiastic and charges at the ball. He rips it up and throws it. He gets mad at the ball, but I think he's playing. Or am I making him angry by continually returning the ball? This is a great question because, you do sometimes see those birds that seem to be getting really riled up and angry and chompy and charging, or like with eckies, it's growling and banging. So I think it's a really great question. Have you got some thoughts here, Robin?
Yeah, I think Amazons, eclectus, conures, there's a bunch of species that tend towards that type of heightened play. We don't know exactly if he's mad or happy. What we can go with are the behaviors that he's showing us. So is he engaging with it in a way where he is approaching the item? He is focusing on it with both eyes, and there isn't any of the frustration type behaviors there. You know what? Let's just call that how he plays. However, the asterisk on this whole thing is, do they have the ability to self-regulate the bird? Does the bird have the ability to self-regulate that when the game is done, the energy level comes back down?
Yeah.
Because some birds are really bad at that and they need some extra help going from 100 to 50. And that could be a factor of how much or how long or how intense do you play those intense games together? Because we have to practice the skill of heightened energy, medium energy, heightened energy, medium energy. And I know some birds are not very skilled at coming back down. So that might be a conversation to have. Is it fun to rip the ball apart? Yeah, heck yeah. Even my gray has a few items that he loves to just absolutely attack. He chooses them out of his forage. He's got a basket for foraging. He loves to kill sunglasses. We have some plastic only sunglasses. They're in his basket. And one day of a month, he chooses those and he murders them. And he's just so happy to do that. And he is then able to bring his energy back down, and we're able to still interact in an appropriate manner. So do you have other thoughts on that?
No, that's exactly it. I'd be looking, can they self-regulate? So if you pop that ball away, what's their behavior after that? Are they then, still crazy looking for it? Do they fly over to you and chomp you? That gives us some good information. And also playing around like with duration and intensity of play. So if you find that, you can play for a couple of minutes, but then you've got to take a break, or, maybe we, are just breaking it up with something else. So like we pick the ball up and he throws it off, but then we're like, okay, let's do something else for a second, and then I'll pick the ball up again, so maybe we break it up. And then also having so I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, just like playing tug with a dog isn't a bad thing, contrary to some of the information that is unfortunately still out there. Tug is a great different topic, but it kind of falls within that same, yes, they might get really amped up and they might bite and grab and they might growl, but that doesn't mean that we can't play that game. It's all about how we play it and how we then help them moderate afterwards. And, so that might be where you're like, okay, cool. After we've done this high energy game, now we're going to do like a low energy foraging activity. And like, I've got a foraging tray and I'm just going to sprinkle in some food, and that just brings them back down.
We're going to use the target to get there. So we're doing a hands-off behavior. Don't pick your bird up when they're in a heightened state. Please use your target, use your skill, give the recall cue and let them go on their own. Do a lower energy foraging toy, something that's maybe more chewing, stimulating in a different way, brings the energy back. Awesome. Those are teachable moments. That's a skill. It takes practice. Yay!
Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think that's basically it. And Sarah, just as you've probably seen this, she said Basil loves shredding an entire carrot, so it's a great idea with her little. So you can put your entire carrot inside the millet holder. Go for it. I mean, he's probably not eating a ton of it if he's just shredding it, but that's fine. Food, like, honestly, sometimes if all you want to do is just give your bird an entire broccoli, like the whole broccoli, and just let them go to town, go for it.
Cheap toy. Yep, absolutely.
And I know it's like, veggies are pretty expensive at the moment, but broccoli, a whole broccoli is probably still cheaper than most of the bird toys you can buy. So
exactly. Yep.
And you can grow it yourself if you really want to.
Yeah.
Or try if you not very successfully.
Awesome.
Yeah, if I'm out for the entire day, she gets a whole carrot. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing, Sarah. I love that.
Yeah, it's great. Awesome. This is so good. There were so many great questions, comments, suggestions from everybody. This was really wonderful. So a massive thank you for those of you who have made it along today and asked your questions. That's been really fabulous. Lots of engagement. I've really enjoyed it. Thank you to Robin, who has come along to join me and add her expertise to this particular topic. I know you've got a webinar also, I think, on the topic of toy play as well. Yes. So you can find that on her Teachable website, which is the Smart Beaks Academy, which you can get to from her website. Just down there.
Yay! Thank you for having me, Lee. This has been so much fun.
No, it's been awesome. I've loved it. And we've got lots of thank yous from people in the comments as well. Thanks, guys. Thanks, everybody, for coming along and just, really engaging with us and giving us lots of things to talk about. So, and for sticking around for an hour and 20 minutes.
It's amazing. I could keep going. This is such a good topic.
I know. It is good. Awesome. All right. Well, everybody have a wonderful weekend. And really quickly, before I finish up, we do have another live coming up in just under 2 weeks. Just over 2 weeks. Just over 2 weeks with the lovely Stephanie Rosenblum. And she is going to come on and talk to us about pellets. And so there'll be a bit more information about why Stephanie is somebody that we're going to listen to, talking about pellets and diet. So just keep an eye out. We'll be posting on the page in the next couple of days or so about that upcoming event as well.
Awesome. Oh, that's going to be super cool. I'll be there.
I'm excited. Yeah. Oh, well, I'm always excited for these.
Yay, birds!
Robin's birds don't want to go to bed.
No, they went for a fly. No,
they're going for a lap.
Totally fine. I love it when they go for a lap. That's good. My old
happily just demonstrating there
on their own, doors open when they're ready. Love it.
Yeah. Excellent. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Robin. Have a lovely evening.
Yeah, you guys as well. Thanks for having me.
No worries.
Bye.